This video explores the shocking truth behind Portugal's ongoing housing, economic, and social crises. A country once seen as a European paradise is now becoming unlivable for its own people. Here's why. 1. Portugal used to be a dream just 2 decades ago. Portugal was one of Europe's most affordable and peaceful places to live. The food was cheap, rent was manageable, and the culture was deeply rooted in tradition. In the early 2000s, the average home in Lisbon cost less than €1,000 per square meter. Today, it's over €2,500, in some areas even more. That's a 250% increase, in a country where wages have barely moved. For many Portuguese families, the dream of owning a home, or even just renting a decent one, has vanished. But this didn't happen overnight. 2. A fragile economy in disguise. After the end of dictatorship in 1974, Portugal raced to modernize. It joined the EU in 1986 and received billions in funding for roads, bridges, and schools. Cities modernized quickly on the outside, but inside, the economic foundation was unstable. Portugal failed to develop strong industrial sectors. Unlike Germany or France, it never had a booming manufacturing base or major tech sector. Instead, the economy became centered around services, and one in particular, tourism. 3. Tourism became Portugal's lifeline, and poisoned by the early 2000s, Portugal was aggressively marketing itself as Europe's best-kept secret. Beaches, wine, castles, and culture, all for a fraction of the price of Spain or Italy. Tourism exploded. From just 7 million visitors in 2010 to 18 million in 2024, nearly double the country's population. Tourism now makes up nearly 20% of Portugal's entire GDP, far higher than other tourism hotspots like France or Spain. But that success came with a cost. 4. Rents exploded, but wages didn't. Tourism brought in money, yes, but not for everyone. The average tourism worker in Portugal earns just €1,200 per month, often working seasonal jobs with no stability. Meanwhile, rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Lisbon is €1,400 or more. In the Algarve, Portugal's tourist hotspot, service workers now commute hours from rural inland towns because they can't afford to live in the communities they serve. It's a system where the locals keep the engine running, but never get to drive the car. 5. The Golden Visa scheme fueled the fire. In 2012, in an attempt to attract more foreign capital after the financial crisis, Portugal introduced the Golden Visa program. Foreigners could obtain residency by investing €500,000 or more, usually in real estate. The results? Property prices in Lisbon and Porto surged by over 250% in a decade. Homes were bought up and left empty, just assets to be traded. Sellers inflated prices to exactly hit the €500,000 threshold. Entire neighborhoods were transformed into investment zones. And the people? Pushed out. 6. Airbnb took over the city's tourism. Didn't just push up prices. It took over housing itself. Airbnbs and short-term rentals exploded. In Lisbon, 11% of all housing is now for tourists. In Alfama, the city's historical district, 60% of homes are short-term rentals. Locals who once lived in those buildings are now either gone or serving the tourists who replaced them. Many city centers have become postcard-perfect shells, places that look beautiful but are completely hollow. 7. Portugal's housing stock isn't the problem, access is. Here's a disturbing fact. Portugal has one of the highest rates of housing per household in Europe, about 1.4 dwellings for every household. So why the crisis? Because those homes aren't being used by Portuguese families. They're being held by investors, rented to tourists, or sitting empty. And worse, construction is slowing down. Portugal builds just 11 homes per 1,000 people, one of the lowest rates in Europe. Combine sky-high demand with minimal supply, and what do you get? An affordability disaster. 8. A demographic crisis is brewing. Young people can't afford to leave home. Over 50% of Portuguese aged 25 to 34 still live with their parents. Portugal's birth rate is now just 1.3 children per woman, one of the lowest on earth. Entire villages are dying out. Schools are closing. Communities are collapsing. And yet the country continues to welcome wealthy foreigners who don't integrate. They simply buy, renovate, and resell. 9. Foreign ownership is draining the nation. It's not just housing. In the last decade, Portugal has sold off major national assets to foreign corporations. Fidelidade, Portugal's largest insurer, sold to China. Energias de Portugal (EDP), now majority foreign-owned. Motorangel, a major construction firm, also partially sold. These aren't just economic decisions. They're decisions about sovereignty. When foreign firms control your insurance, your energy, and your infrastructure, who really governs your country? 10. The government is not helping despite public outrage. The Portuguese government doubled down. In 2022, they introduced a digital nomad visa. It gives residency to remote workers who earn €2,800 per month or more, 4 times Portugal's minimum wage. This brought a new wave of well-paid foreigners, many from the US and UK, who can outbid locals for housing without blinking. And again, locals are left behind. The government says it's attracting talent. The people say they're being replaced. 11. The consequences are already here. 1 in 3 homes in Lisbon is now sold to foreigners. A third of Lisbon's historical center was unoccupied in 2024. In Porto, home prices rose 61% in just 4 years. Entire generations are leaving, searching for a better life abroad. What started as a tourism boom has become a human displacement crisis. And the question must be asked, who is Portugal really for? 12. This is more than a crisis. It's a warning. Portugal's story is not unique. From Barcelona to Athens, cities around Europe are watching tourism and foreign capital tear apart communities and price out locals. But Portugal is the clearest warning. The most extreme example. What happens when a country sells its culture, its homes, and its future for short-term profit? What happens when a nation becomes more valuable to outsiders than to its own people? 13. Can Portugal be saved? There's still time. Some cities have started limiting short-term rentals. The Golden Visa program was finally suspended in 2023, but many believe it was too little, too late. Real change would mean reinvesting in affordable housing, limiting foreign ownership of critical sectors, supporting Portuguese families over foreign investors, and remembering that a country is not a product. It's a home, but the window is closing. And if Portugal doesn't act soon, it may lose its identity forever. Portugal is at a crossroads. What happens next will not only shape its future, but could redefine the soul of an entire nation. If you care about housing, justice, and the right to live where you were born, this story matters.